Well, haven't done too many videos of late, but this one has been on my heart for a little while to do, and I keep seeing updates on Facebook, and I've just been prompted today's the day. Let's get this video out of the way. Um, I'm just going to talk really simply and really basically about God's faithfulness, but not from sort of a normal angle. The reality is there's two concepts of faithfulness that need to come together. God's faithfulness, and that's unchallenged. That's just a gimme. God is faithful. But God's faithfulness has to meet our faithfulness as well. And it's us that have some of the challenges with faithfulness when it comes to God, His promises and His word, all that sort of stuff. But I want to, I've been watching Roderick Mission, anyone that's been involved in what we did in Manila, Roderick, you've heard his name many, many times. But I'm looking at him today as a young man who is just super successful. Got an amazing career, graduated university. He's done a whole heap of things already. But as an example of God's faithfulness plus or combined with our faithfulness and our perseverance, our commitment to God, because God's commitment to us is, again, that's you can't challenge that. God's in. But then our commitment to God and our perseverance and our push and our commitment, our taking that little bit further step every time, and us just hanging on to Him, as if that's all life is worth, which is sort of true. But I just want to do a little bit of a recap on Roderick's story. So again, we sometimes we like to complain and grumble about where we started in life, how things, the cards that we got dealt. But it's all a load of rubbish, really, because it really doesn't matter where you start. It matters how quickly you find Jesus, and then it matters what you do next once you've found Jesus, because He's got a plan and a purpose for your life, every single one of us. That goes without saying. But then our dedication, our commitment, our determination, our resolve, our push, ours, that then determines a lot. And it doesn't determine what God does, but it does determine about what manifests through our life as a result of God's promise and God's commitment and God's faithfulness to us, right? And you can believe till the cows come home, but if you don't get up off your butt and do stuff, there's really not a lot that happens in life. I clearly remember the early days when we found Roderick. When we first came into contact with Roderick and his family, Roderick was 8 years old. He was malnourished. All of his siblings were malnourished. Mum and Dad were at home. Father had tuberculosis, so it was it was basically impossible for him to work. Mum's got these four. Yeah, mum's got a group of kids, and so just the situation was tough. The whole world was tough, and Roderick was 8, and by 10, Roderick was the sole income earner for his entire family as a little boy. So 10, he's a little boy. He's working during the night in the local markets, and he's trying to stay awake during the day to study at school, and of course that can't happen. It doesn't happen for adults. So how's a 10-year-old boy going to do it? So we then got more engaged in the family, put him in malnourishment programs, all that sort of stuff, dealt with basic health issues. But then you just can't have a 10-year-old boy trying to study during the day and working all night in the local markets. It's a recipe for disaster. It's not going to happen. So we took the whole family, we put them into what we called a family sponsorship program, where we provided basic necessities on a week-by-week basis, plus some cash for the things, so we fed them. We fed and looked after the family. We put all of the students, all of the siblings in that house, we put them all into a student sponsorship program. So we actually took over their life. Fraught with danger, you can create all sorts of dependencies and all that sort of stuff, so it has to be done wisely. I think we did it well, and I think the evidence that we did it well is Roderick. So we take him out of work, we put him back into school, we feed the whole family. We do this for years. We look after them for a long time. And but then eventually Roderick's father passes away with tuberculosis, and mum remarries. That doesn't sort of work, as in stepdad didn't really like Roderick or want Roderick. I'm not sure of all the details of how those things happened, but anyway, it just really sounds like he was a bit of a jerk, really. And well, he was. He just was a bit of a jerk. Roderick may think otherwise now, but that's fine. At the time, there definitely wasn't that much redeeming, and there was nothing in the relationship between Roderick and his father. His stepfather, sorry. So mum just packed up the other kids and literally just left. And I think Roderick was maybe 12 or 13 when they just all left. They just all left and left him there in Bezecco by himself. And so basically just abandoned him. So listen to the package, right? 8 years old, malnourished, impoverished. 10 years old, trying to do everything that a 10-year-old shouldn't do, working throughout the night in local markets, studying in school. No income or support from his family at that particular time. Father dies, family abandons him, walks off into the sunset and just leaves him in the slum all by himself. So, of course, we pick him up and we build him a house, and because we're committed to him as an individual, as a person. We continue to support him in school. He finishes elementary school. He's living in a house that we built for him. He's living off food and water and generosity that we provide and that others provide for him as well. It wasn't just us. And he graduates primary school. We go on and put him into high school. He graduates high school through some of those formative years as a young man. Just growing. He had some challenges like many young boys do. We had to walk him through all that stuff, and he's had a tough road. End of story, right? He's had a tough road. Graduates high school. Clearly, he's not necessarily the brightest student in the pack, but he's working really hard. He's putting in the effort. He's studying through. He's putting in the time, and so he graduates high school well. And then we get to the big decision or the big call. Is Roderick going to go on to college? Is he good enough? Is he going to put in the work? Is he, in a sense, worth it? I suppose. And all that is yes. So we put him into college as a computer programmer, computer technician, which was his choice. As we do with many of our students, we don't necessarily always put them into the lowest colleges because, again, two children. A rich child graduates from the top accounting firm in the country. Poor child graduates from the lowest accounting firm in the country. Both graduate, both turn up for the job interview. The child that graduated from the lowest one is not really competitive with the child. So we try to put our students into decent colleges when we do that. And even that, first year of that was hell for Roderick. He was clearly the impoverished kid. He didn't have everything like all the other kids had who had rich mums and dads. He didn't have a laptop. He didn't have an endless budget for study, research, food. He had what we could afford to give him. So he got picked on in that first year. He got put down. He was looked on as the impoverished kid, the one that sort of shouldn't be there. And he had to work his ass off. He had to work his ass off to prove himself in that place. And I remember the day. I don't remember the details because I'm not a techie myself. But the professor or the lecturer has presented the class with a problem. Solve it. And I do remember that, I think they had a week or something. It was a techie issue. They had to solve it. And no one else in the class could in the class could work it out. They were coming up with solutions, but they were all wrong. And it's actually, what I say next is almost obvious. Now, who was the kid in the class that worked it out? Roderick. He worked it out. He worked out the formula, the solution. He put in place. It worked, and that was sort of a big thing that gave him a bit of sort of study credentials, respect in the classroom with all the other rich snobby kids. So, and that's sort of been the challenge of his life. And then, of course, he graduates. He graduates university, passes the course, does well, gets his degree. We sort of endeavour to set him up with some computerised work, doing some online stuff, and all that's good. Other people from Singapore were involved in helping to potentially set up a little industry. but then COVID hit, and it sort of, other things happened. But anyway, it sort of failed. But Roderick didn't sit around whinging about that. He didn't sit around crying. And now, if you follow Roderick on Roderick Mission on Facebook or any of the other platforms, he's actually working now in the biggest and the best health and life insurance company in the Philippines. There's sort of a sales rep. I don't know his exact title, but he's sort of sales insurance, and he's often in the top 10 or the top 5 for the month of salespeople, and basically he's just killing it. He's absolutely killing it. And I saw a photo of him today on Facebook. He's there literally in a suit and tie, and he's got that very classic Roderick smile all over his dial. And I was just looking at him and I'm thinking, wow, just how far have you come, mate? We met you when you were 8. You're now in your mid-20s, and the reality is you shouldn't have made it. Roderick should not have made it. He shouldn't have graduated elementary school, primary school. He shouldn't have graduated high school. He shouldn't have graduated college, and he shouldn't be in a well-paying job, respectable, standing there in a suit and tie, because he had the world against him. He had the world against him, and the reality is he had me and Christine and a few other people, local people, that really just were kind and compassionate to him in the slum. But he had me and Christine, and he had Jesus. And he didn't need me and Christine, except we were the ones that connected him to Jesus. We were the ones that prayed with him, prayed for him. And on top of all the practical successes, he rose up through children's church. He rose up and became a youth leader, and our number one best worship leader. He's got the worst voice in the world. I always tell him that he's got the worst voice in the world, but his heart is just wide for Jesus. And if Roderick grabs that mic and begins to lead worship, he's going to actually take you into the presence of God. He's going to, him and the team behind him, just the heavens are going to open, the Spirit of God's going to come. And so he's just buried into Jesus. He's buried into church. He's committed. He's worked tirelessly at everything. Like worked tirelessly in the ministry. Worked at his education. Worked at his business ideas and concepts. He's taught, mentored, and trained other younger people. And so he's passed it all on. And a couple of months ago, he actually got ordained as a pastor. Actually ordained as a pastor in the Philippines. And now he's sort of I suppose in a sense, he's our first homegrown pastor. We've got lots of leaders that have risen up and that run things. We had Alan and Manny Kakat, and we got other graduates, so I'm not, but I'm just, this is the focus here is Roderick, God's faithfulness, and your work, your commitment, your push, your faithfulness. So when God's faithfulness meets our faithfulness, there are no limits at all. None. See, if it's just God's faithfulness, we become the limit. We become the boundary. We become the stopper, because God's got amazing plans for every single person, every single one of us. But we don't all see it because we don't actually commit as much as God is willing to commit. But when we commit, when God's faithfulness meets our faithfulness, bing, bang, it's all going to happen. And literally the sky's the limit. So 8-year-old malnourished boy, 10 years old, working his butt off, trying to study, falling asleep at school, supporting his entire family. Father dies, abandoned by his mum. Graduates everything he does well, and just buries into Jesus. So it really doesn't matter where you start. What matters is what you do next. That's it. What matters is what you do next. And I am so proud of Roderick. I'm proud of many of the young people. They were kids when we started there in Manila, but now they're adults, and they're not just adults, they're successful adults, and they're mentoring things back, they're passing things back, and they've broken all the rules, and they've broken all the boundaries, and they've just sort of stuffed the limits. I'm going to succeed. I'm going to work hard. I'm going to put the yards in and put in the effort. And I'm just going to make, God's got a plan, and I'm going to make the most of that plan. So couple of lessons in here, right? God's faithfulness has to combine with our faithfulness. But also, from my viewpoint now, from me and Christine's viewpoint, God tells you to do it. Do something, do it. Don't hesitate, just simply obey. Because if we hadn't have heard and then we hadn't have obeyed going to Manila, Roderick wouldn't have made it past 10, 11 or 12 probably. Or if he did, he would now be an impoverished adult eking out a living in a slum. But he's not. He's not. And I had no idea. We had no idea God was going to do that with that one life. And so from the viewpoint of now you following Jesus yourself, being obedient to what he speaks to you, even if it seems odd, it seems weird, you do it. You step up, you do it. Because the ripple-on effect, your obedience, see, our obedience has now, in a sense, produced this young man, Roderick, who is actually producing other young men and women like him because he's encouraging, he's passing it down, he's mentoring. And you just don't know what God's about to do. But if you say no, or if you hesitate, or if you dilute down what you think God's calling you to do, then you'll never see the results that God wants you to see. And it's not even really about the results. It's about God fulfilling his plans and his purposes in other people through you. So, Roderick, so proud of you, buddy. Don't comment much on Facebook. I'm really losing interest in that social media platform, but so proud of you. And you're a awesome testimony to the goodness of God and the faithfulness of God, as are many of the young people. And I'll potentially do some other videos later on because we just got some other great people in there that are doing wonderful things. But I just thought, that's just, he gets ordained as a pastor. That's like almost the crowning glory, And the next thing, I keep joking with him, is a girlfriend, get married, children, family. Let's get that thing moving, Roderick. But anyway, all in God's time. So I hope there's some encouragement in the video for you. If you know Roderick, seriously, just cheer him on. Just what a legend, doing great things. Bless you all.